This week on Industry Relations, Rob and Greg talk about more nonsense. Let's go.
This is Industry Relations, a podcast at the intersection of real estate and technology from an insider's perspective with Rob Hahn and Greg Robertson. In today's tough real estate market, keeping buyers motivated and loyal is key. Now is the time to leverage the power of One Home by CoreLogic and the best-in-class data and client collaboration experience it brings. Seamlessly integrated into Matrix, One Home delivers unbeatable engagement and one of the highest customer satisfaction scores amongst the top 10 national real estate portals. More impressively, One Home leads the pack by keeping users coming back with the highest repeat visits. With One Home's invite-only access, agents can provide their clients a truly exceptional experience. Don't forget to remind your MLS members to try this great value-added benefit. If your MLS hasn't added One Home yet, please reach out to your CoreLogic rep. Thanks again to CoreLogic for sponsoring the Industry Relations podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Industry Relations with Rob and Greg. This is your co-host, the notorious Rob Hahn. And as always, with me, the fabulous Greg Robertson. Whoa. Yeah, baby.
Hola, Rob.
I'm good, man. Hola. How are you doing?
Good. Just, kicking it.
Kicking it. You got this big conference coming up. Are you ready?
Oh, man. I've still got it up there. Nobody's canceled, so we got a ton of people coming, right?
Yeah.
So, no, it's getting exciting.
Yeah.
It's getting exciting.
Yeah. I think I'm almost done with my presentation too.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long is that you got there for?
Supposedly 30 minutes.
Okay, because we need time for you and I to come on stage too, right?
Yeah. So I think I have to cut it down from 90 slides. I'm just saying. I think
90.
Like I said, I gotta cut.
You're kind of.
I gotta cut.
Yeah, you're making me nervous now, bro.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm looking forward to that. That will be fun. But unfortunately, we're gonna start today with a not fun topic because the fires in LA have now been burning for about a week. You and I both know people, who I don't know if they're affected. Honestly, I assume they are. But obviously, we have tons of people that we know who are in and around LA, and it's just terrible.
Yeah,
I think all we can say is our hearts, our prayers, our thoughts are going out to you all. And I'm sure there's already so much punditry and political stuff happening, and I'm kind of like, look, I think there'll be time for all that. Right now, as far as I know, the fire's still burning. Like it still hasn't been fully contained, so. Just want to. There's obviously nothing you and I can do, but just wanted to send our thoughts out to you all who are dealing with that situation.
Yeah, and a lot of people have reached out to me living in Southern California, and
Sure.
want to know how I was doing, and I'm much south of it, so and I'm in Huntington Beach, so we're a lot closer to the beach here, so it's hazy skies and earlier, a few days ago, you could definitely smell some of the burn, but it's, we're not affected at all, knock on wood. But, that my wife knows a family that lost her home, and that's, there's the GoFundMe pages and everything that's going on. So the community up there is come together. That's a good thing. I think the bright spot, if there's any bright spot here, is, it doesn't seem like there's been, the devastation of property for sure, but the loss of life seems to be relatively small, right? So,
oh man, 24 people so far.
Yeah, but you think about the hurricanes and some other things.
Sure.
It's as far as a natural disaster. Any loss of life is bad, but it could have been a lot worse. You see some of these natural disasters that are hundreds and thousands or whatever. So we'll see what happens.
And the way I look at it, let's just hope it stays at that 24 number. Because, again, the fire's still not out. It's still not been controlled. So, again, our hopes, our prayers, our wishes go out to our friends in and around L.A. and people who have friends in and around L.A. Yeah. And, again, I'm sure there's going to be some sort of response from kind of organized real estate, as a whole. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that in the future. But just wanted to acknowledge that this thing is happening. This thing is going on.
Yeah.
And who knows, by the time, this episode airs, hopefully everything will be controlled by then. That's our hope right now. All right. So just like I said, we're going to open with not such a fun topic, but I think it had to be done. And I thought, what are we talking about today? And you wanted to jump from one not fun topic to yet another not fun topic. So why not? Let's just go.
Well, I mean, I had several here, but I mean, the one that I was thinking of was, SCOTUS denies NAR, right? And I read your little Twitter comment, which was a little bit snarky, which is like, was there anybody really that thought that they were going to hear this?
Right, but we talked about this last year, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way they're granting cert. There's nothing here.
Well, I mean, and I think based on that conversation, I mean, you had said there's no way that NAR is going to get the court to reverse this. And then they did. And then they reversed it again. And now so it's like you never know what's going to happen, right? So
I guess. But like I said, I think I would have been shocked if the Supreme Court said, yeah, there's some real constitutional question here that we're going to, no. No.
Right.
So, but the deed is done. It's been denied officially, formally. So, which means that the Court of Appeals ruling stands, which means that the Department of Justice is free to go after NAR again. And
which again, I think we've always said this. They could have anyway. I mean, this was just I think it was more of sticking to the agreement that they made before, even though in that agreement and others it had a provision saying, but hey, we can still come after you for other things, right? So these agreements are just kind of batshit crazy to me. I mean, even the last settlement says, here's our settlement, here's what we're doing, but hey, we can always come back for more. So
sure.
what are you really getting in this stuff?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing is, like, as I was talking on Twitter a little bit, it isn't as if the DOJ's really scaled back that much, right? They sent out these CIDs, and now NAR, the MLSs, everyone's going to have to now answer these demands, right? These interrogatories. And CIDs typically, sort of come in advance of some sort of action, right? Some sort of enforcement action, whether it's a lawsuit or something else.
Right.
So I imagine, like, okay, you've played your final card, right? It's like Supreme Court, that was the final card. So now I assume the NAR's lawyers are back at the table with the Department of Justice trying to work something out, trying to negotiate something, right? I have to imagine.
And then you have a, transfer of, power, basically, right, within the federal government as far as the executive branch is concerned. So,
sure.
What is that? How does that factor in, right? Because this original one was created during the Trump administration, the first one, right?
Right.
So,
well, the first one, and then the settlement happened under Trump. When Biden administration came in, they undid the settlement.
Right. So now,
and then we've been fighting 4 years. So Trump is coming back, but we've talked about this, man. Like, let's go over it again. Trump 2.0 is not the same thing as Trump 1.0. I don't think he's going to help NAR in this at all. Like, it's just not high on his list of priorities. Department of Justice, the antitrust division was not Trump's enemy, right? So Trump and Pam Bondi are going to go after the parts of the DOJ that he's pissed off at, right? But I don't think antitrust is one of those parts, right? And J.D. Vance, at least, is very pro certain types of antitrust enforcement, right? He's what, I think we've been referred to as neo-Brandeisian.
Right.
And even if it's not that, I think NAR sort of what the Department of Justice is claiming, what they're going after, is classic antitrust. You guys conspired to keep prices high. So I don't see that letting off at all.
Yeah.
At all, right? The only thing that would have really changed things is Doge, right? So let's say on the 21st, there's just a mass layoff and half of the lawyers in the antitrust division are just fired, right? I mean, that would be the only real impact. But
that's not going to happen.
Right? I mean, I don't think and I've been listening, to the news coverage and the punditry, the political pundits around this. I just don't think anyone's like, yeah, day one, Doge is going to fire half the federal workforce. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they're claiming they want to do. Vivek Ramaswamy famously said, look, if your social security number ends in a, odd number, you're fired. Like one of those. I just don't know if that's actually doable.
It really sounds like a very effective way of firing people,
Right.
Not.
Well, I mean, if you just need to reduce, that's a great way.
No, I mean, I don't think people should be evaluated.
Well, there's no, it's just a mass layoff. I'm saying
not on their product. Well, even on a mass layoff, I mean, I've been part of those. I mean, you look at the individual's contribution and productivity, and
I'm sure they're
not based upon an odd number of your freaking Social Security account. That's crazy.
Well, and then they're gonna go fire the other half that begins with like an odd even number or something. So the idea was 75% reduction in like a matter of a week, right?
Yeah.
But again,
okay,
that's an idea that's floated. I'm not getting the sense, the vibe that that's going to happen immediately, which means that I don't think the antitrust division is going to be like laying down. I think they're coming out hard. And we saw a sign of that because they petitioned the court to appear oral arguments in the Rex v. Zillow case.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unusual, right?
Is that an appeal, actually?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Because the trial court threw out most of Rex's case, right? And Department of Justice came in and they filed a statement of interest. They intervened, right, once again. And now they want to appear and at oral arguments. I mean, that feels like, so last year after the settlement, I said, I think the DOJ's done working through proxies. Working through these civil lawyers. I think now they're going to take a direct hand. And this feels like a step towards that.
Yeah, but I mean, so far, big whoop, right? I mean, they did some sort of statement of interest, I think, on the Boston Nulsevec case.
Yep.
Okay, big whoop. They made some sort of squeakiness about right before the NAR settlement got, signed. Who cares? I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to say something else again, and what? I mean, it just seems like they're so vague about stuff. I mean, I remember listening to some of the industry attorneys saying, well, maybe we'll actually hear what the DOJ wants, but they're kind of famously for not actually saying what they want to make them happy. So
sure.
What? So okay, yeah. Make another vague statement that we have to interpret through some sort of interpreter or tea leaves or something, and then, I mean, it's like they're some great oracle that we have to kind of, what way the wind blows or something. Jesus.
Yeah, it's so odd to hear a Democrat going against the government. It's so weird.
I'm not a Democrat.
I'm an anarchist.
I've been registered. I've been registered independent for a long, long time here.
But look, I mean, you could say it's no big deal, but fact of the matter is that Department of Justice intervention has had major impact, right? Every time they've intervened.
Okay, they've intervened on the Nulsevic's case. So what was the major impact?
Basically destroyed their settlement.
Well, they didn't want to settle, right? That was the whole thing with them. They didn't want to kind of participate.
No, between the plaintiffs, the civil settlement.
Right. Okay.
Right. When they intervened in the PLS and Top Agent Network case, guess what? Those two cases got revived. That was a case where NAR had won, just hands down, just total domination.
Well, I mean, I think these things they've been put back into play, but I'm not. Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying NAR won those, decisively won those. Department of Justice intervenes, and then an appeal shit gets overturned. Right? Not only overturned, but the Ninth Circuit essentially paints here's a roadmap, PLS, for how you're going to win at trial. Right? PLS then settled, but Top Agent Network hasn't. They're going to trial in November. They're just going to follow the Ninth Circuit playbook. Right? So it's not a small thing. So in this case, Rex v. Zillow, most of Rex's claims against NAR were dismissed. Right? Basically, it was look, this was an optional rule, right, instead of a mandatory rule, so get out of town. I mean, that's effectively.
Yeah.
Department of Justice coming it may seem like an optional rule. It's not really an optional rule. This is indicative of blah, blah, blah. They filed that statement. So an appeal, the point is, the appellate court could restore Rex's lawsuit against NAR and the MLSs. All they had left was like some lawsuit against Zillow. It was like tiny, it was minor, it wasn't really antitrust. It was like some false advertising claim, some crap like that.
Right.
Like, hey man, like, that's gonna be a big deal if they come back and say, no, we're restoring the antitrust lawsuit. Right now we're talking treble damages. Right now we're talking like.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to kind of, I mean, you've been right so far in a lot of stuff. So I'm not, I'm trying to rethink my thing here. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I don't want to be right on
sounds
this one.
like
I'm just saying. It feels
Citrus
like,
Burnett is going to be huge, guys. I'm like, really? Well, yeah, really.
and they are going to settle. They got no money.
Oh my God.
So no, it's potentially a very big deal, right? And then to me, this is just a sign. Like, what next? I think, to your point, with the industry lawyers who are like, well, what the hell do you want, and criticizing the Department of Justice for being too vague and blah blah. Like, I have a feeling we're about to find out what they want.
Yeah, okay, that'd be great, fantastic.
Would it? No, that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to be a bad day when we find out what the Department of Justice
Well,
wants.
it's hard to negotiate with somebody when you don't know what they want, when they're just giving you partial information or whatever. It's like, okay, now I know what you want. Let's now work a compromise out, or, whatever it is. But it's, this vagueness of whatever. It's like,
Sure.
okay. It's like, when your wife's in a bad mood,
Yeah.
right? It's like, just, what do you want? We'll make this happen,
yeah,
right? I'm not a mind reader,
Yeah.
right? I mean, tell me tell me what do I have to do to fix this, right?
Yeah, this is gonna be great for your dinner tonight with your wife. I'm just saying. I don't look for my Sonny's actually pretty clear. I
Good for you.
I don't wonder, but I get what you're saying.
Most times, my wife is very clear, also.
I get what you're saying, but I don't, so here's a piece that I wonder about, okay? I know the Department of Justice is probably going to do something and take a real active role, but, they've kind of, the civil lawsuits and the settlement that came out of it kind of achieved a lot of what I think their objective was, right? So what are they going to come in with, right? Like, what more in other words, like, they've already kind of killed NAR. They've already kind of destroyed the MLS system. Like, what more do they want, right? And my thinking on that is, I think they're maybe going to, firm up certain parts of it, right? So, for example, remember we had Doug Miller on, and he was saying, you're not allowed to offer compensation, period, end of story.
Right.
Even though the settlement
that would be
says,
his
right.
Yeah, that would be his dream thing, but that's
Right.
not where we're at.
That's not what the settlement says. What the settlement says, the MLS can't be involved with that, but brokers can offer compensation to one another. So maybe the Department of Justice comes in and says, yeah, you're just going to ban that outright, right? Maybe they come in and they take issue with, the three-way agreement. They take issue with clear cooperation policy. They take issue with, certain things kind of on the edges to really firm it up, right? And then I think if you're right, I think it'll be useful to know exactly what they want in terms of what's their goal objective, what's your policy objective at the end of the day, right? It's not about this rule or that rule. What is the end goal you're trying to achieve?
I think it is close to what Doug was saying. It's just nobody should offer any compensation. There should be no offer of compensation, I think, at the end of the day. But I mean, that's kind of picking on the real estate industry. I mean, why just real estate? Why can't it be, where is that anywhere else?
No, so that's why I think we sometimes get a little bit forced with the trees on this. When I think about, go back to 2019, go back to 2016, go back to, 2012, whatever, when the Department of Justice and FTC had that joint hearing, right? The end goal here is to drive transaction costs down to 1.5%.
Yeah, I mean, again,
right.
but that that 1.5% that they go towards what the rest of the world pays is,
Mm-hmm.
to me, a red herring, right? I mean, I saw some study about, what the real cost of Australian real estate
Sure.
is, and the taxes, they have other transfer things and everything else. Well, it's like,
Right.
it's not 1.5%. They have these other kind of things in there
Sure.
that, and we have our own kind of things like that, of course, but, title and whatever else, but it's just not, they're chasing something that's not an apples to apples comparison.
I'm not
And-
saying it is, right. And again, this is, we're not saying I want things to be 1.5%. I'm pointing out, I think that's the end goal that they want, right? When it's all said and done, this all comes out of like academics who did a bunch of studies and show that like we're paying 6%, the rest of the developed world is paying somewhere between 1.5% and 2%, right? Again, you could say that's wrong, it's incorrect, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, cool. Like, make that argument in court, make that argument in policy. I'm just saying, I think what the Department of Justice and the FTC want is for transaction prices to be around 1.5%, right? And the thing is, they kind of set that
and
up,
I think,
right?
yeah, I mean, but again, you can, and I think maybe this is why maybe it sets it up or something. It's just, and we've talked about this before. Yes, you can. Go to Redfin. Go to one of the discount brokerage. Go to, you can do that. So go do that. Just because most people, a vast majority of people, more people than ever, in the past couple of years have used a realtor, find that having a trusted advisor on the biggest transaction in life is something they're willing to pay for.
Sure.
And in other countries are not. Well, there's a lot of things that Americans pay for that, other countries don't, right? I mean, again, and the option is there. Go use a discount broker. I mean, it's not like it's been forbidden. It's just most people want to use those, right? So I
think is you're repeating NAR's argument in Sitzer, and you lost. And the reason is because all of the discount brokers came out and said, we're not allowed, we can't do that because of all this network, this system, right?
What are you talking
makes it
about? I mean,
impossible
again,
for us to
there's
do that.
billboards that say transaction for 1%.
There's
Big
a
red
lawsuit
billboards
going
out
on
there.
right now between Rex and NAR and Zillow. Right now, where Rex is claiming we got put out of business because you guys came after us, you conspired against us, right? Okay, so I'm not even trying to argue like the substance or whatever in this. Well, all I'm saying is I think when you think about it, what the Department of Justice wants, what our betters, our lords and ladies in the government want, is they want 1.5% transaction fees, and they're going to remove what they see as all of the barriers getting in the way of that 1.5%. So I think the theory goes like this. I think if I were one of those lawyers, if I'm a policymaker, if I'm an academic economist, studying this, I would say the free market cost fee for a real estate transaction is 1.5%, because in other countries it's 1.5%, right? So for it to be 6% or 5% here in the United States must mean there are things going on that are not free market competition. What are those things? Well, one was NAR and this rule, right? Another was the MLS. Maybe there's something to do with the commingling. Maybe there's, like they're looking at all these other things. They're trying to figure out like, why isn't the transaction cost in the U.S. the free market competition cost, right? I'm putting air quotes around there for our audio listeners, right? Like, and I think that's what they're after, right? The NAR settlement goes a long way towards that. So now I think what the DOJ is going to do is come in and try and prevent NAR, organized real estate, the industry itself, to be able to manage that, right? So, and I think we talked about this last time when we were doing our prediction, when we did the prediction show, right? Which is, based on this, I don't think it's 2025, but you could easily see a pathway where real estate overall commissions are probably in the 2% range, right?
Well, I mean, the studies, Dupree put something out, within, and this is just months, right? So, but that it wasn't.
I know. Yeah.
So, but like you said, sometimes these things take a while.
Yeah.
additional models, new models will be out there, but it might take a while. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like you would think like, okay, whether or not the DOJ think this settlement is a win, I got to believe, as you say, there's a lot of things that help in their case. Hey, give it 5 years, give it 3 years, see what happens, and then come back and say, okay, because you might be making these assumptions that the market hasn't really been had enough time to kind of evaluate yet, right? So
that's my stance. I think if so. And the thing is, let's rephrase. Let's go back and revisit this. Right? Is there a moth? You have a fly in your office.
Yeah.
So when I made that whole prediction, whatever, my thing was based like not on DOJ, not on any of this stuff. Okay, once you've removed compensation from the MLS, once you have smashed NAR, okay, I'm just based on the fact that 1% listing companies are everywhere, right? And they're having great success, and they've had great success for 10 years. All the 1% listing guys, and they're like everyone knows, like they exist in every city, right? Every market area. Okay, we've never had 1% buy side for obvious reasons because, right? Like, under the compensation model, why would you, like Redfin tried that 1% with the refund and the rebate and all this stuff, but it doesn't have the same impact, right? Because buyers were never like, oh, I'm paying out of pocket, right? Buyers are like, oh, the seller's paying it. And the seller's going, okay, cool, you're 1%, but that means it's 4% to me versus 6%. It's not that big a deal, right? So my theory is like, okay, if 1% listing shops have existed forever and made a ton of money and were successful, it seems very obvious we're going to have 1% buy-side shops, right? And in fact, it might be the same store. It might be the same brokers. Like, we make money on 1% listing. Why don't we just do 1% buy-side? And then now we're at 2%. So I imagine that's what it would happen. It would take 5 to 10 years for the market to adjust to that new level, right? That's kind of what I believe. I think the issue is what the Department of Justice now then has to look at is, even if they are thinking in those terms, which I don't think they are because these are lawyers, they want to have a mission. They're like, no, we are here to smash this monopoly. So I think I'm going to do that. But even if you had an economist perspective on it, you'll get to 2% unless something stops it from getting to 2%. What is that something that could stop it? Right? It would be things like NAR regains its power. It would be things like MLSs and their local monopolies. It would be things like commingling rule. It would be things
why
like
can't an MLS exist? I mean, let's say it's normalizes at 2%. Is that going to really affect? I mean, the MLS still provides a service of.
I think the MLS would be fine under 2%. My point is the MLS existing as a monopoly with this much market power could prevent the 2% from happening.
Right. Even though what you're saying is they could exist under 2%, you would still think that they would. You think they would stop that happening?
Well, no, I'm not saying I would. I'm just saying I think if I'm the Department of Justice, I'm looking at this going, what could stop this inevitable march to 2%? It would be something anti-competitive, right? Something else. Which is, I genuinely think, it may not be the DOJ, but I genuinely think the next big lawsuit, other than Batten, which we have to talk about, is probably a state forms lawsuit.
Right.
Right. And more brokers, especially the big ones, are getting hip to this. They're starting to realize, oh shit, the more we use some state association form, more exposed we are to that inevitable anti-trust
because
lawsuit.
They are created by the very practitioners of that.
Correct. Correct. So I think
there's been some
smart.
State associations have corrected that, though, right? I mean,
have they? Have they corrected it?
But by bringing outside people into it, not brokers to craft these things that are all in their direction, right? I mean, that's what they need. They need to have some sort of outside.
Who's done that?
Counsel, huh?
Who's done that? And the specifics matter.
Yeah, I don't. This is a lobby bar conversation I had with somebody, and what they said to me was like, "Listen, I listened to your podcast with you and Rob talking about this, and the next thing I did is I called up our state association and said, we can't do it this way. We're going to have to do it this way because that's going to open us up." And I think I can't remember who that was, but I know there's been talk about that.
We're having influence, baby.
Yes, yes.
But so from that, though, to me, I'm like, okay, you could bring in outsiders onto your committee. That doesn't change the essential nature of a whole bunch of competitors sitting around making decisions.
Well, if you're hiring an attorney or some other thing that's out,
Right.
The way you make it sound like you can't do nothing and it can't be independent, right?
No,
There's got to be
so-
a way of making it independent.
No, it's the only way to do it is for a company to do it.
Right. You hire a company to do it.
But then you can't have an input. So in other words, like let's say you hire a law firm, say draft forms for us. Mm-hmm. Does your board get to vote to approve those?
No.
It has to be that. It's like, okay, whatever they come up with, we are just going to accept.
Yeah.
And if the board has no ability to approve,
They should be able to review them and say, oh, what you put in there is that's not legal or that's not correct.
Well, I
You
mean,
could
that's a law
proof,
firm.
but
Like a law firm, if they
oh yeah, lawyers don't make mistakes, right?
No, I'm saying like that would. Okay, well, so you're a realtor who sits on the board of the state association. You're gonna tell me, the lawyer, what's legal and not legal?
No, but the state association's council can.
Why didn't this? You know what I mean? Like, it gets weird. So my point is, depending on how they implement it, maybe that immunizes them from some antitrust claim. Fact of the matter is, the vast majority of state associations, with their forms committees and all that, they're all on the hook, right? And I wish more people like our listener, who you can't remember, would listen to us speak and go talk to their state associates, speak to their counsel immediately, and start talking about, okay, how do we immunize not ourselves, but our broker members? Do you know what I mean? Because that's what the issue is. Like,
Right.
Keller Williams and Remax and Anywhere, and they all got roped into this commission lawsuit because you're part of the conspiracy, and they're fucking like, in what way are we part of the conspiracy? Like, well, your agent is on the board of directors. Like,
Yeah.
that's got nothing to do with us. Like, we don't see it that it's a fucking mess, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they'll fix it. But anyway, I'm just saying that's like a big one, right? Batten is a big one. I can't believe we're talking as if commission lawsuits are behind us. Commission
Well, that was
lawsuits
a
are not
big one.
behind us.
Yeah, but some of haven't we seen like in some of the things on Batten that some of the judges have said like, well, this seems to be cured by
Right.
the Sitzer Burnett case,
Right,
right? So
right.
and it's
Which-
still
right.
continuing through that, but we'll
No. That's what I'm
I
saying.
mean, again, I hate I'm trying to be optimistic about things, but you've proven before that
We started with LA as on fire, and then we went to SCOTUS denied. Like, we're spitting truth and facts. It's not because we want any of this to happen. No, you're right. So what happened with Batten was the judge was like, look, we're dealing with the seller, the Sitzer Burnett thing. It's a big thing. Let's just hold off. Let's just figure out how this is going to play out, right? Because you can't be liable for the same action to two different people.
right.
You know what I mean? So I think that's what it was. Okay, cool. The final settlement that was approved, the final approval of the Sitzer settlement, right? It's like nobody's paying attention to this part, right? It clearly says Batten, right? If you're a plaintiff in Batten and you sold a home, you're covered under the settlement. If you never sold a home, you're not. So I personally renamed Batten the first-time homebuyer lawsuit.
Right.
So Batten's going to go on with claiming as a class everyone who bought a home for the first time without selling a home in the last 5 years. What's the
Right.
damages on that motherfucker?
Right.
It's
Well, but I mean,
billions and billions of dollars.
it's saying, what's the saying? You can't get, is that juice worth the squeeze, right? Because it's like NAR and some of these guys, the $2 billion club is like, fuck it, I'm going to BK the place, take it all. Right? I mean, because, there's not, when you take half their balance sheet,
Sure.
when you look at what NAR had to put up or is
Sure.
starting to write checks for, it's
Sure.
just like, okay, well, no. So, okay, what, what's left. Take here's my shirt off my back or whatever else. I mean, I think at some point these guys are just going to BK themselves.
Sure, at some point they will, right? But in the meantime, if you're some plaintiff's lawyer, you don't give a shit. You have a yacht you want to buy, right? Last I checked, Ikea was making like $5 million a year.
Oh man!
So it's not like
that
NAR
much.
What?
Is it that much?
I think so. That's the word on the street, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Bob Goldberg was making millions. Like, it's not.
I don't think he was making $5 million.
I don't know. Like, but it's substantial amounts of money, right? Like, it's not like NAR is totally broke. Yeah, they took half the balance sheet. They still have a couple of nice buildings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying this should happen. I'm just pointing out if I'm a lawyer and I'm like, I have my eyes on like another yacht.
G7.
Right. And I've got Batten. I still have Batten. And guess what? It survived as a first-time home buyer lawsuit. Okay, cool. How many first-time home buyers bought a home in the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Oh, that's like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 million people. Okay, now we're going to sue to recover the cost for the buyers, right? And it's like $10,000 per, and the triple damage. Like, it's billions and billions of dollars. Like, so of course everyone's got to settle again, right? Like, okay, NAR, last time we took you for $418 million, right? What you got left?
Yeah,
we'll take half of that.
I wonder how many of these franchisors or brokerages signed up for the Swanepoel list for this time, right? It's like, no thanks. You know what, Stefan? I'm good. I'll just be my little guy over here, and you can make your lists, and I don't want Mr. Batten knocking at my door asking,
But here's the thing. I'm looking at it. Okay, so let's war game this out. Say you're the lawyer for Anywhere, right? The Batten lawyer's like, hey, so we can now proceed. Like the court said, the final approval. So we're about to bring a lawsuit, sue you for, I don't know, $35 billion. How much you want to give us to settle with you now? I mean, I have to imagine those conversations happening right the fuck now. Right. And then
maybe not right now, but I mean, maybe because it has been settled. So
right. Maybe there's appeals, right? So maybe they're waiting to see what the appellate court says. Who knows? I'm just saying, like, this notion that the commission lawsuits, oh, phew, like, it's behind us. Like, no, it's not behind us. Not by a long shot. You know? And that might be something we want to talk about, right?
Oh, God. Just
nobody wants to talk about it.
Can we catch our breath here?
And in the midst of all that, man, we're about to enter into, like, some crazy-ass housing recession. And, one of the impacts of this LA fire thing is, dude, insurance is going to be like the topic for housing. What do
you mean gonna be? It has been for a while. There have been
only a couple
houses
states.
in Florida. Yeah, but I mean, big states. Florida's a big state, right?
Right, Florida and California mostly. But now I feel like everyone's like, what the fuck? What? Yeah. It's gonna be a mess. Right?
Well, it's such a weird, with where the fires were there. It's like these bungalows that were worth $3 million because of the location. I mean, and what's the cost to build? There's so many. The regulations, I guess, California is saying they'll, take away the red tape or whatever for these guys. But I mean, and then there's a labor. Who's going to build these homes if you're exporting them out of the country? So many things that are kind of.
I mean, I guess
tied up into
this.
You
could pay Americans like that. That is a possibility.
Yeah, we'll see.
Just have to pay more.
Well, yeah. What does their insurance cover? Do they have insurance? A
lot of them did.
How much does it cost to build per square foot? Is that something that was in your?
Simonson just posted a tweet about this. Said $1,100 a square foot in California for custom, $700 a foot for semi-custom.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's assuming permits. That's assuming, hey, man, you guys have a coastal commission. Like, I live in Nevada. We don't have things like that, right? We don't have a desert commission.
Right.
Is the coastal commission going to allow the Malibu mansions to be rebuilt?
God. What a nightmare. These poor people.
And you live right in Huntington Beach. Like, if some of those homes were burned down, you think Coastal Commission will let those be rebuilt? Or will they be like, no, we need to keep the pristine, wild nature?
I don't know. I think there's, the winds have changed a bit. Not a very sensitive analogy there, but
way to go.
Yeah.
There will be a firestorm of controversy. Dude.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, I think it's going to be a real interesting time in residential real estate, right? Something I'm thinking about a lot is what happens to rent.
Well, they're already complaining about rent gouging in LA, right? I mean,
right.
And that the thing is, you can check that shit now, right? Because it's on a Zillow, it's on whatever. It'll show you the price history, and like,
right.
Oh, it just went up $500. Wonder why?
Right.
Right. Don't be outing those guys pretty quickly.
Right. I mean, it.
Well,
shocked...
it's.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Lance that was talking about, or maybe it wasn't him, but somebody local in Phoenix, where the Phoenix market looks like, as far as inventory levels, are like 2016, right? So there seems to be in some green shoots of inventory levels rising, which I think is going to help things a lot. The doomsayers are saying that's the housing crash is coming because now supply is going to go through the roof, and I mean it's still, well, not in LA. I mean they just lost a ton of homes, right? At least in that area.
But
although that was very affluent.
I don't. Yeah. I can't remember her last name. There's a woman, Amy, DFW.
Yeah, Amy. Yeah. Is it Amy Dixon or Nixon or something?
Nixon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have been talking about the Airbnb crash for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Something I'm curious about with Phoenix and a lot of these markets where the inventory is higher, how much of it are Airbnb investors? Right? How much of it are investors dumping their homes? Right? How much of our single family, homeowners who are like, I need out? We don't actually know. At least I've never seen any stats around it. Right? Maybe one of the economists could do something on that. I would love to know if Phoenix is that high because all these short-term rental people just have dumped their shit, taken a loss. That seems like a positive, right? Because they means that they were rich people who had enough money to invest into real estate. They lost their shorts. Okay, that happens when you invest.
Yeah, but I mean, I've heard conflicting things on the Airbnb apocalypse,
Me
right?
too.
So I've heard, there's that side. And then there's the other side. It's like, yeah, that's not, maybe in some pockets there's some issues, but overall the company seems to be doing well, right? I mean, so
I have no idea. It's
not. And it's like,
no, the company's doing well. The issue is, are the landlords doing well?
Well, I mean, the company makes money if the landlords are doing well, and if the landlords aren't doing well, they don't make money, right? So there's got to be some causality there. I mean, and the other thing is there's also the Darth Powell and the other guys on Twitter that have been predicting the housing dump for 9 years, right? And this time is for real, right? It's like, good Lord. I have no understanding of supply versus demand or anything, but it's just shit posting all over the time.
I don't know, man. I have some sympathy for those guys who've been predicting the same thing for year after year, and then it finally comes true. I'm just saying.
Well, I guess if you wait long enough, anything can come true, right?
I have some sympathy for them. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting deal. Right? And boy, I do get this feeling like when it rains, it pours really seems to apply. Because okay, we had this lawsuit, we had that, we had Batten, we have the fire, we have insurance, we have rates, we have mortgage, we have affordability crisis.
Go buy a gun, Greg.
Right? All these things happening in the midst of it, the industry itself, organized real estate from within, is just imploding. The 3 agreement, Phoenix, Alabama,
CCP,
CCP, it's imploding, and it's hard to keep your head straight. But that's why we're here.
Yeah,
because we're
that's why
trying
we're
to.
In fact, and we have to make an announcement. I know we're wrapping here, but so it's been a crazy month, everybody,
Yes.
right? So we got Inman next week. I'll be there. Rob's got some
I have
other
travel coming up this
travel,
weekend.
and then we have the MLS Reset Conference that we're hosting there. So we're going to push our first live stream to February 7th,
That's right.
which is a Friday.
First
same
Friday.
First Friday. And then maybe we can keep the first Friday going rest of your.
Yep.
I know we teased this; it would be next Friday, but that didn't work out
Yep.
for various reasons. But
Yep.
February 7th. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends, and remember, tune in 10 a.m. Pacific. We'll have a link and all that available through social media and such. I guess show notes maybe.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, welcome back, I guess. Good luck as you're planning this major event.
This damn industry just keeps giving, and not in the greatest way sometimes, but
Yeah, but
it keeps giving us content.
Entertained, and that is true. So hopefully people find this useful and interesting as well. So, all right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to us Yammer, and we will talk to you next time. Ciao.